So we're going to continue with part 2 of our simple puppet rig. In the last part, we used our template, broke apart our individual pieces using distribute to layers, went into our parent view and parented our pieces together so that when we move the torso, everything moves with it. Now we're not quite ready to animate yet, because if I go through and start moving these pieces around using my free transform tool, they are automatically going to rotate from the center, where our transformation point is by default. So we need to fix our transformation points. I'm going to zoom in here. To fix our transformation points, we need to have our free transform tool turned on. If you have selection, you can't click it. Free transform tool. And when you mouse over, hover over the transformation point, you will see a tiny little circle appear to the right-hand side of your cursor, showing that you have selected and grabbed the transform point. The transform point is where every object transforms from. So if you stretch it, squash it, skew it, if you use transform flip vertical or transform flip horizontal, which is just going to flip it like that, it's going to move from the point that the transform point is placed. So, in order to rig our character so that it moves kind of like a bipedal human being, we're going to move our transform point to where the joints would be on a person. So, we'll start with the head. Because the head and the neck are one piece in this rig, we're going to move our transform point down to where the neck would rotate, so that when we rotate, the head goes from side to side. On our arms, because it's all one piece, we want them to rotate from the shoulder. So we're going to place this right where the arm piece intersects or overlaps with the torso. And do the same thing on the other side. With the legs, we're going to place this where the hip bone would join in with the pelvis bone, so a little bit into the torso, but still inside my box. If you place a transform point outside of your symbols box, it will still transform around that transform point. But once you start getting into animating and doing other things with it, you're going to find that it gives you problems. So make sure wherever you place this point, it needs to be on the symbol inside the box. Okay, so now I have arms that rotate at the shoulder and legs that rotate at the hips, and a head that rotates at the neck. Doesn't really matter where you place the torso point, because we can't rotate the torso very much. Everything is attached to it. When you have your own character and you break it up into multiple pieces, your trunk section will have multiple points. What I like to do is I like to either leave this in the middle, or I like to place it around where the belly button would be, which would be our character's center of gravity. So if I ever decided to, for example, squash and stretch this character, it would squash and stretch from the center of gravity. All right. Now we're just gonna do it again with the 3/4 view. Now I can't really see what's going on here. So what I can do is I can go to my torso layer, 3/4 torso, and if I click this rectangle, I can turn everything on that layer into an outline, and now I can see through it. So now I can see where this is, and I'm going to place that right there. Same thing here, right up there where the hips would be. This one's going to be a little bit higher because we do have some perspective going on there. And then to return this torso back to normal, I'm just going to go up here and click this again. So that's the 3/4 view. Let's do the side view. I'm going to do the same thing with the torso again, where I turn it into outlines so that I can see where everything goes. Neck goes there, shoulders up there. Oops. That shoulder is there. Hip joint there. And hip joint there. All right, so that's all you have to do to adjust your transform points. An important thing to note whenever you're adjusting transform points is you want to make sure that you're always doing it on frame 1. If you make other frames and adjust the transform points on those frames, they're going to go back and adjust on your other frames, and they're going to mess everything up. So make sure that you are always changing those initial points on frame number 1. Of course, here we only have a frame number 1, so it's fine. All right, so our next goal is we want to be able to animate all 3 of these characters on the same stage at the same time. So we are going to do what is called symbol nesting. So I'm going to take this folder, which has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 layers in it, and that layer, or that folder, has 6 layers, 6 symbols. I'm going to click the folder, left click. I'm going to right click the name of the folder, and I'm going to go down to convert layers to symbol. I'm going to make sure this symbol is a graphic. This is important. I'm going to name the layer the symbol front, and I'm going to click OK. Now if I look in my library, you can see that I still have my torso, legs, head, arms, but I also have a symbol that is all 6 of those symbols in the front view. Stay with me now. We're going to do the same thing with a 3/4 view and the side view. Convert layers to symbol, 3/4. Make sure it's a graphic. Excellent. Convert layers to symbol, side. Perfect. So now we are back to having 1, 2, 3, 4 layers, front, 3/4, and side. But we have in each of these symbols that are inside of other symbols. If we double click for example, let's do the front. If we double click this symbol in our library or on our stage, let's do it on the library first, you will see that inside the symbol, nested inside the front symbol, is your front folder with all 6 of those symbols in it. Same thing if I double clicked it here, you could see that I have a symbol that has all 6 of my symbols in it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do a quick little animation just to test out our rig. So let's go to front. I'm going to double click, and I'm going to give myself some more room here. I'm going to go to the 1 second mark, double click the timeline, hit F5 to extend all 6 of my layers to 1 second. Place a keyframe on all 6 layers. Go to frame 12, do the same thing, placing a keyframe on all 6 layers. On frame 12, I'm going to grab this torso and I'm going to move it up into the air. As you can see, all the pieces move along with it. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to move these arms and legs and head just a little bit to the side with it as well. So my result is frame 1, it's on the ground, frame 2, it's in the air, and frame 12, it's in the air, and then frame 24, it's back on the ground. I'm going to select all of my layers. Alternately, I can just double click on one of them, and I'm going to set a classic tween, create a classic tween, create a classic tween. Now if I play, ta-da, I've got my character doing a little hop in the air and then coming back down. So I have animated all of this inside of our nested symbol. If you look here, scene 1 is where everything is sitting. We are animating inside of the front symbol. If I go back to my scene 1 and give myself 1 second of frames on all my layers, you will see that this character jumps up in the air, comes back down, even though there are no frames here. All of our frames, all of our animation is nested into the symbol itself. This is a great way to keep your main timeline from getting cluttered. Otherwise, you're going to have dozens and dozens and dozens of folders with layers that are parented and all that kind of stuff. Now on this main timeline, you only have to deal with your front, your 3/4, your side, and your background. So let's go ahead and do the same thing with our 3/4 view. I'm going to double click on the symbol, open my folder, set keyframes at 1 second. I can go ahead and set my classic tween now if I would like to. The order of operations on that doesn't really matter too much. Sorry, F6 to set a keyframe. As long as we have a keyframe set at 1 and a keyframe set at 24 that are the same frame, and then make our changes in between those 2 frames, your animation will always loop. So let's do the same thing that we did for the first view. Move our character up, move arms and legs, just do a little Mario. Okay, boop, there we go. And again, if we go back to our main scene, that animation is going to play inside the symbol. All right, so let's do the same thing with the side view, but I want to show you a few things. First thing I want to show you is what happens if your symbol is not a graphic. Set this to movie clip instead of graphic. What's going to happen if it's a movie clip is that it's not going to play in the timeline. If I double click here, I can play it here and it looks fine. But if I play it here, it doesn't work. If I preview it, then it works. This is simply the way that movie clip style symbols work in Animate. The idea is that something that you set as a movie clip is usually an actual movie clip, and it's very large and very resource heavy, so you wouldn't want it playing in your timeline all the time. For the most part, we're always going to leave our symbols at graphics, unless they are literally movie clips. That way, we can see everything playing in the timeline.